The Hillsborough heiress accused of plotting to have her ex-boyfriend murdered over a child custody battle in 2016.
My client wasn't just not guilty.
The back seat, Tiffany was unfaulted and Kipling was unfaulted, but Kipling was dead.
Would you harm Keith?
No, I would not harm Keith.
Would you have anybody else harm Keith?
No, I would not do that.
She was evil to my son. She was just evil.
In the affluent community of Hillsborough, California, a shocking murder case would unravel involving a multi-million-dollar heiress, a former lover, and a tale of betrayal and intrigue. This is the story of Tiffany Lee, Keith Green, and a murder trial that gripped the nation. On the evening of April 28, 2016, the quaint town of Millbrae, California, with its peaceful streets and tight-knit community, was about to be thrust into the national spotlight. The Millbrae Pancake House, a local favorite, was the chosen rendezvous point for Keith Green, a 27-year-old father, and his ex-girlfriend, Tiffany Lee. Their intention was simple: to discuss the custody of their two young daughters. But as the night's shadows grew longer, the atmosphere became thick with tension and foreboding. Tiffany Lee, often referred to in hushed tones as the Hillsborough heiress, was no ordinary woman. Born into immense wealth, her family's fortune was amassed through a sprawling real estate empire in China. Her life, with its luxurious trappings, stood in stark contrast to the dark events that were about to unfold. As she pulled into the parking lot in her gleaming Mercedes G-Wagon, few could have imagined the sinister plot that was in motion. Keith, with his heart heavy with emotions, approached Tiffany's car. In a moment of vulnerability, he confessed that he still harbored feelings for her, expressing a longing to reunite for the sake of their children. But as the two exchanged words, the narrative took a dark turn. While Tiffany later claimed that their conversation ended with her leaving Keith in the parking lot, evidence suggested a far more sinister sequence of events. Investigators pieced together a chilling theory. Tiffany, with motives yet unclear, allegedly persuaded Keith to accompany her to her opulent mansion in Hillsborough. This mansion, a symbol of her family's vast wealth, was about to become the stage for a gruesome act. The prosecution believed that once inside, Keith was confronted by Tiffany's new boyfriend, Kaveh Bayat. In a chilling act of violence, Bayat allegedly forced a gun into Keith's mouth and pulled the trigger, ending his life in the most brutal way imaginable. But the horror didn't end there. With Keith's lifeless body as a testament to their crime, the duo, along with Olivier Adela, a mixed martial arts fighter, and Bayat's bodyguard, allegedly embarked on a grim mission to dispose of the evidence. They transported Keith's body over 80 miles, discarding it callously in a remote field in Sonoma County. It was a couple of weeks before Keith's decomposed body was discovered, on May 11th, 2016, by Sonoma County Sheriff deputies. It was abandoned near Healdsburg, along Highway 101. The discovery was made in a remote field, far from the bustling streets of Millbrae, where he was last seen, setting off a whirlwind of investigations, media frenzy, and public outrage. The sudden and shocking disappearance of Keith Green in 2016 swiftly transformed from a missing persons case into a high-profile murder investigation that gripped the nation. As days passed, the spotlight intensified on Tiffany Lee, the affluent Hillsborough heiress, and her new boyfriend, Kaveh Bayat. Their involvement in the sinister plot became the focal point of the investigation, with every revelation adding another twist to the tale. San Mateo County's elite SWAT teams, recognizing the gravity of the situation, orchestrated a meticulously planned raid on Lee's sprawling Hillsborough mansion. The raid was a spectacle, with armored vehicles and heavy armed officers descending upon the opulent residence. The outcome? Both Lee and Bayat were taken into custody, their world of luxury suddenly replaced by the cold bars of a jail cell. But the plot thickened with the introduction of a third character, Olivier Adela, Bayat's personal trainer and bodyguard. Adela, initially charged with Green's murder alongside Lee and Bayat, soon became a pivotal figure in the investigation. In a dramatic turn of events, he brokered a deal with the prosecutors. The murder charge against him was dropped, and in return, he agreed to testify against Lee and Bayat. This deal, however, didn't absolve him entirely. He still faced the daunting charge of being an accessory to the crime, specifically for his alleged role in the chilling act of discarding Green's body. The defense, armed with a 15-page trial brief, mounted a vigorous challenge to the prosecution's narrative. This document, which ABC 7 News managed to obtain, laid out a strategy that aimed to poke holes in the prosecution's case. One of the most startling claims was the absence of any concrete evidence linking Green's murder to Lee's residence or her opulent Mercedes G-Wagon. Despite Adela's chilling account of Green bleeding out in the car, forensic teams found no traces of Green's blood or DNA within the vehicle. Furthermore, the defense countered the prosecution's assertion that the fatal shot was fired in Lee's garage, pointing to the lack of bullet marks, shell casings, or significant gunshot residue. Lee's attorney, Jeffrey Carr, went a step further, presenting a theory that not only sought to exonerate Lee, but also cast Adela in a more sinister light. He proposed that Green might have been alive, albeit incapacitated, when he was placed in the trunk of the vehicle that transported him to his final resting place. However, San Mateo County District Attorney Steve Wagstaff remained undeterred. He expressed unwavering confidence in their case against the duo. While acknowledging Adela's pivotal role in their case, he emphasized that their evidence was multifaceted and not solely reliant on his testimony. The anticipation surrounding the trial was palpable, with Tiffany Lee having secured her temporary freedom by posting an astonishing $64 million bail, one of the highest ever recorded in state court. The stakes were sky high. Bayat, on the other hand, remained incarcerated, with his bail set at a staggering $35 million, and Adela, with the possibility of walking free, given the time he had already served, added another layer of intrigue to the proceedings. This investigation was more than just a quest for justice for Keith Green. It peeled back the layers of society, where immense wealth and privilege could potentially shield dark secrets and heinous crimes. The trial of Tiffany Lee, Kaveh Bayat, and Olivier Adela was a spectacle that drew significant media attention, not just because of the heinous nature of the crime, but also due to the high-profile status of the accused, especially Tiffany Lee. The opulent Hillsborough mansion, the $64 million bail, and the intricate web of relationships added layers of complexity to the case. Prosecutors presented a narrative where Lee, driven by motives related to custody and perhaps personal vendettas, conspired with her boyfriend Bayat to eliminate Keith Green. They painted a picture where Bayat, in the confines of Lee's mansion, executed the murder by shooting Green, after which Adela was roped in to dispose of the body. The discovery of Green's cell phone in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, and later his body in a remote field in Sonoma County, were key pieces of evidence that supported the prosecution's narrative. However, the defense had its own version of events. They argued that Olivier Adela was the real killer, attempting to shift the blame away from Lee and Bayat. The defense highlighted Adela's initial admission of disposing of Green's body and his subsequent plea deal with the prosecutors, where he agreed to testify against Lee and Bayat in exchange for a reduced charge. This plea deal, however, was later revoked when Adela allegedly violated its terms by contacting a defense witness through social media. The trial saw numerous twists and turns, with each side presenting their evidence and witnesses. The jury was tasked with sifting through the complex layers of testimonies, evidence, and motives to arrive at a verdict. After intense deliberations, on November 15, 2019, the jury delivered their verdicts. In a shocking turn of events, Tiffany Lee was acquitted of all charges. Bayat was found not guilty on a gun charge, but the jury was hung on all other charges against him, leading the judge to declare a mistrial for those charges. The outcome was unexpected, especially given the public sentiment and the media portrayal of the case. Bayat's legal journey wasn't over, as he was due back in court on December 4th, 2019 for further proceedings. However, the San Mateo County District Attorney's Office decided not to retry Bayat for the murder of Keith Green. The jury had previously deadlocked on a verdict for Bayat, and as a result, all charges against him were dropped. Bayat was subsequently released from jail. The resolution of the trial left many with more questions than answers. The acquittal of Tiffany Lee, in particular, was a topic of much debate and discussion. The community, the media, and those closely associated with the case were left to grapple with the complexities of the justice system and the intricacies of this particular case. The resolution, while providing legal closure, left an emotional and psychological void for many, especially those who knew and loved Keith Green. The trial was a whirlwind of emotions, reactions, and further developments. The community, having closely followed the case, was left in shock by the verdict. Tiffany Lee's acquittal was met with disbelief by many, especially considering the weight of the evidence and the high-profile nature of the case. The fact that she walked free, while questions about Keith Green's death remained unanswered, was a bitter pill for many to swallow. The case shone a spotlight on the immense wealth and influence of the Lee family. Tiffany's ability to post an unprecedented $64 million bail, backed by over $60 million in property, raised questions about the role of wealth in the justice system and whether it could tip the scales in the favor of the accused. For Keith Green's family and friends, the verdict was a devastating blow. They had hoped for closure and justice for Keith, but the trial's outcome left them grappling with a sense of injustice. The pain of losing Keith was compounded by the feeling that his killer might never face the consequences of their actions. Olivier Adela, once a key player in the case, found himself in a precarious position. Initially, he had struck a deal with the prosecutors to testify against Lee and Bayat in exchange for his leniency. However, his plea bargain was revoked when he allegedly contacted a defense witness through social media, a breach of his agreement with the prosecution. As a result, Adela was back in the crosshairs of the justice system. In a surprising twist, Adela's legal troubles extended beyond the murder case. As soon as he was released from prison, in January 2020, he was taken into custody by federal agents. Now known as Mustafa Traore, he was charged with passport fraud, a crime unrelated to the murder. A federal judge sentenced him to 6 months in jail and 6 months of home confinement for the passport fraud. In the aftermath of the trial's verdict, the emotional weight of the decision was evident, even among the jurors. One juror bravely stepped forward to share her profound regret and anguish over the trial's outcome.
I just think there are 2 murderers who are free today, and it feels like we didn't do our job well enough in some way.
Indicating her conviction that both Tiffany Lee and Kaveh Bayat were guilty. The jurors' distress was further exacerbated when the jury was inadvertently given raw cell phone data, which they were later instructed to disregard. The emotional toll of the trial was evident when she was asked about Keith Green's family. She lamented,
We worked so hard, and I now have to rely on exactly what Colleen relies on, which is karma and the fact that these people have to live with what they did.
Colleen is Keith Green's mother, who had previously described Lee as evil and voiced her own conviction that karma would ultimately hold her accountable.